My name is Baker Peeples. I'm the music director of Lamplighters Music Theater in San Francisco, California. Since 1952, the Lamplighters have specialized in producing the works of W.S. Gilbert and Arthur Sullivan, some of the most popular and widely performed works of musical theater all around the English-speaking world for 140 years. Between 1871 and 1895, Gilbert and Sullivan wrote 14 comic operas, including HMS Pinafore, The Pirates of Penzance, and The Mikado. The Gondoliers is the 12th in that collaboration. As a librettist, Gilbert was a superb craftsman, both as lyric poet and dramatist. But perhaps his most distinguishing characteristic was his keen sense of the ridiculous, which he developed with exacting logical precision. To use his own words, nonsense, yes, perhaps, but oh, what precious nonsense. And Sullivan's music is a treasure house of unforgettable, catchy melodies, as well as great subtlety of characterization and orchestration. Many of the original 19th century targets of Gilbert's satire are no longer familiar in the 21st century. The aesthetic movement in art, barnstorming melodramas. But Gilbert's imitations are so witty and sharp that they create their own reality and have stood on their own merit, undiminished, for over 100 years. Much of Gilbert's satire centered on politics, always a ripe target, and on the highly stratified class system of Victorian England, which has become less rigid over the years, and which was never as strong in America. Both of these elements figure prominently in the story of the Gondoliers, which also offers infant marriages and babies stolen and switched at birth. Perhaps Gilbert was only abiding by that first rule for authors, to write about what you know. For at the age of 2, while traveling with his parents in Naples, he was kidnapped and held for ransom by Italian bandits. Is it any wonder that, having been lost by his nursemaid and redeemed for £25, he might be a little sketchy on just where the line was between real life and a comic opera plot? Not surprisingly, The Gondoliers takes place in Venice, in the year 1750. Venice was nominally a republic at that time, which allows Gilbert to contrast its egalitarian republican ways with the strict hierarchy of a monarchy. But no political science degree is required. It's all in good fun. When fate plucks you out of your everyday world and plops you into a totally different existence, there are bound to be a few laughs along the way. It's a topsy-turvy world. The opera opens on the piazzetta in front of the Ducal Palace, with the Grand Canal in the background. Today is the day when the two most popular gondoliers, Marco and Giuseppe Palmieri, have decided to choose their brides. A swarm of beautiful young bachelorettes has gathered to make bouquets of red and white roses to present to the two young men, in the hope that they will be the chosen brides. But the odds aren't good. There are only 2 brothers, and there are about 24 of them. Two dozen gondoliers arrive ahead of the Palmieris and find out that they're going to have to take a back seat and wait until the 2 brothers have made their choices, then take whoever is left. Just a momentary setback. No problem, they say, for the merriest fellows are we that ply on the emerald sea. With loving and laughing and quipping and quaffing, we're happy as happy can be. When Marco and Giuseppe finally arrive, they gallantly greet their admirers in Italian. Buongiorno, signorine. Trading compliments back and forth with the young women, they graciously accept the floral tributes, then sing in a duet that though they're called gondolieri, their main job is singing, morning, noon, and night. No need to plug in your iPod. Wherever, whenever, the Palmieri brothers will provide your soundtrack.
Well, universal courtesy to beauty devoted to Sophie and I. When morning is breaking, our countess forsaking, to drink their unwaking, with carols we come. That summer day mooning, when weary lagooning, our merry riches and this morning was
And now, say the brothers, to choose our brides. As all are young and fair and amiable, we'll just blindfold ourselves and marry any two of you we catch. In no time they captured Tessa and Janetta, who up to now have been anonymous contadine, but who now become the female leads of the opera. They graciously thank the gallant Gondolieri for having chosen them, and all prepare to run off for the wedding. With that, this uninterrupted 20-minute opening sequence comes to an end. It's almost a complete plot of an Italian operetta. But the story is about to get a bit more complicated. A gondola pulls up, and out step the travel-weary Duke of Plazzatoro, his Duchess, and their daughter Casilda. The Duke is somewhat impoverished, and his suite of servants has of necessity been reduced to one, a drummer named Luis. They've just arrived after a difficult crossing from Spain, and vow that if they ever get home, they will never travel on the sea again.
From the sunny Spanish shore, the Duke of Plazator,
and his Grace's Duchess true, and his Grace's daughter too,
and his Grace's private drum to Venetia's shores have come, to Venetia's shores have come. And if ever they get back to Spain, they will never cross the sea again. They will never cross the sea again.
In contrast to the easygoing, egalitarian Venetians, we see that the Plazzatoros, particularly the two women, insist on their aristocratic rights, especially a proper show of respect from menials to their superiors. Casilda is incensed at Luis's failure to bow to her father. "Papa, I've no patience with the presumption of persons in his plebeian position. If he does not appreciate that position, let him be whipped until he does." The Duke sends Luis into the ducal palace to demand an audience with the Grand Inquisitor. Then he explains to Casilda why they have made this trip to Venice. 20 years ago, as a baby, she had been married to the infant son of the King of Barataria. The king soon abandoned the traditional church, which would have been Catholic, of course. To avoid perpetuating this innovation, the Grand Inquisitor had stolen the young prince and brought him to Venice, where he would presumably get a more traditional, i.e. Catholic, upbringing. Back to the present, the King of Barataria has just recently been killed in an insurrection, so it is now time for the young prince to be crowned and for Casilda to take her place as his queen. After a momentary thrill at this news, Casilda protests that she has nothing to wear. They are practically penniless, but the Duke assures her he has taken steps to remedy the situation. To take advantage of his social influence as a duke, he has incorporated himself as the Duke of Plazzatoro Limited. It's simply a matter of marketing, of rebranding. And it's not the first time he's tried it. In the army, where others might have said he was hiding from battle in the back ranks, the Duke simply declares he was leading his regiment from behind.
In enterprise of martial kind, when there was any fighting, he led his regiment from behind, he found it less exciting. But when away his regiment ran, his place was in the foro, that celebrated, cultivated, underrated nobleman, the Duke of Plaza Toro. In the first and foremost flight, you always found that night, that celebrated, cultivated, underrated nobleman, the Duke of Plaza Toro.
The moment the Duke and Duchess go off to look for the Grand Inquisitor, Luis and Casilda rush into each other's arms and declare their love. Necessity has forced her to disdain him in public and before her parents, and now she reveals to him the awful news that she was married in babyhood and must renounce their love forever. They must consider their love as dead as last year's leaves, and let the grave close o'er the days that were, that never will be more.
Oh, bury, bury, let the grave close o'er the days that were, that never will be more. Oh, bury, bury, love that old condemn, and let the whirlwind mourn its requiem.
The Duke and Duchess return with Don Alhambra del Bolero, the Grand Inquisitor, who they hope will lead them to the new young King of Barataria, Casilda's husband. There is just one slight problem. When Don Alhambra had brought the young prince to Venice, he had given him to Baptisto Palmieri, a gondolier, to bring up with Baptisto's own son. He tells the story in a rollicking song.
I stole the prince and I brought him here and left him gaily prattling with a highly respectable gondolier who promised the royal babe to rear and teach him the trade of a time on ear with his own beloved Bradley. Both of the babes were strong and stout, and considering all things clever, of that there is no manner of doubt, no probable possible shadow of doubt, no possible doubt whatever.
No possible doubt whatever.
But owing I'm much disposed to fear his terrible taste for tippling, that highly respectable gondolier could never declare with a mind sincere which of the two was his offspring dear, and which the royal stripling. Which was which he could never make out, despite his best endeavor. Of that there is no manner of doubt, no probable possible shadow of doubt, no possible doubt whatever.
No possible doubt whatever.
So, because of Baptisto's terrible taste for tippling, he got the two boys mixed up, and then, after no more than a year, he died, with no one now able to identify which is the prince and which the gondolier. But the Inquisitor has a solution. He will send for the prince's former nursemaid back in Spain, who will no doubt be able to identify the prince without any problem. Just how she will be able to do this, he doesn't explain. Incidentally, by the logic of comic opera, the nursemaid happens to be the mother of the Duke's drummer, Luis. Casilda is confused and more than a little angry that she's married to a gondolier, which is akin to hearing you're married to a taxi driver. But Don Alhambra assures her that such complications frequently occur, as if to say, don't worry, people lose princes all the time. The five sing a quintet, stoically acknowledging the complexities of life, which one should just face by singing, dancing, and draining an occasional cup of wine. Not all that different from the gondolier's motto we heard earlier. With loving and laughing and quipping and quaffing, we're happy as happy can be. But here the language is a bit more refined and aristocratic. String the lyre, fill the cup, lest on sorrow we should sup. Take life as it comes.
Try we lifelong, we can never straighten out life's tangled skein. Why should we in vain endeavor guess and guess and guess again?
Life's a pudding full of plums.
Kill the canker that benumbs.
Life's a pudding
Full of plums. Care's a canker and benumbs.
Louis sets off in a gondola with the Inquisitor's emissaries to fetch the nursemaid, as the ducal party leaves in the other direction. Meanwhile, the Gondoliers and contadine return with a wedding cake, congratulating the newlyweds, Marco and Ginetta, and Giuseppe and Tessa. The tender-hearted Tessa sings a song about the sweet fulfillment of being married.
When a merry maiden marries, sorrow goes and pleasure tarries. Every sound becomes a song. All is right and nothing's wrong. From today and ever after, let our tears be tears of laughter. Every sigh that finds a vent be a sigh of sweet content.
Don Alhambra enters to discover that Marco and Giuseppe have just been married. He's alarmed, but doesn't let on just yet that one of them is already married. He informs them that one of them is the king of Barataria, and that since the country is in a state of insurrection, it's necessary that they assume the reins of government at once, together for the time being, until it can be determined which is the actual king. They may take their friends with them and give them places about the court. That's always done. But then Don Alhambra drops the bombshell. Ladies are not admitted. Not at present. Later, perhaps. Ginetta pleads with him not to separate them so soon after their wedding, but Don Alhambra is insistent. After all, it won't be long. The prince's former nursemaid has been sent for, and when she has identified the king, the happy couples can be reunited. After he leaves, the two young brides begin to imagine what it will be like to be a queen.
Then one of us will be a queen and sit on a golden throne, with a crown instead of a hat or a head and diamonds all her own, with a beautiful robe of golden green. I've always understood. I wonder whether she'd wear a feather. I rather think she should.
Oh, 'tis a glorious thing I mean to be a regular royal queen. No half and half affair, I mean no half and half affair, but right down regular royal queen.
Drawn by the noise, the rest of the gondoliers and their girls return and ask the four newlyweds why they're so giddy. They explain their newfound position as king and assure their egalitarian Republican friends that if they come along, they will install everyone in an important official position, and everyone will be equal. The noble lord who rules the state, the noble lord who cleans the plate, the noble lord who scrubs the grate, they all shall equal be.
For everyone who feels inclined some post we undertake to find congenial with his frame of mind, and all shall equal be.
The chancellor in his peroot, the earl, the marquis, and the duke, the groom, the butler, and the cook, they all shall equal be.
The gondoliers bid their brides a fond farewell, and the women warn them not to forget them in that faraway island. The act closes with a rousing chorus, then away we go to an island fair, as the men board the ship that will take them to their new home in the southern seas. Act 2 takes place at the court of Barataria. 3 months have elapsed since the gondoliers sailed to this tropical island kingdom. The insurrection seems to have ended, possibly because of the new egalitarian monarchy of the Palmieri brothers. The men are occupied in games of various sorts, and seemed pleased with this ideal form of government, a strict despotism combined with absolute equality, where incidentally none of them has to do any work. The two kings, Marco and Giuseppe, are doing all they can to please their subjects, but they express one small grievance. Although they act as one person, they are actually two persons, and yet they get only a single ration of food and drink. After a brief discussion, the courtiers grant their request for double rations. In gratitude, Giuseppe expresses the novel idea that in order to be called king, one must do something to earn it. So he outlines their typical day, making themselves useful about the palace. The usual parliamentary tasks supplemented by such chores as dressing their private valet and helping their private secretary with his spelling.
Rising early in the morning, we proceed to light the fire. Then our majesty adorning in its workaday attire, we embark without delay on the duties of the day.
All that's missing from this utopia is the little wives they left behind. Add them in, says Marco, and you have the recipe for perfect happiness.
Take a pair of sparkling eyes, hidden ever and anon in a merciful eclipse. Do not heed their mild surprise, having passed the Rubicon, take a pair of rosy lips.
As if Marco had rubbed a magic lamp, in rush the contadine, who have sailed here at the risk of their lives. They brought the kings their wives, Janetta and Tessa, who bubble over with a non-stop barrage of questions for their husbands.
And we find the change delightful. As at home we've been remaining, we've not seen you both for ages. Tell me, are you fond of raining? How's the food and what's the wages?
The main question, of course, is which of them is king? But that they won't know until Nurse turns up. In the meantime, how about a dance? At the end of the dance, Don Alhambra unexpectedly appears. He is appalled by what he sees, but not, it seems, by the presence of women dancing. He is upset that rulers are fraternizing with their servants. He explains to Marco and Giuseppe that this total equality just won't work. Certain distinctions must be observed. By example, he tells of an instance in which the experiment was tried, where the land was overrun with lord chancellors, bishops, and admirals, and everyone was a leader. When everyone is somebody, then no one's anybody.
In short, whoever you may be, to this conclusion you'll agree. When everyone is somebody, then no one's anybody.
Now that's as plain can be. To this conclusion we agree.
When everyone is somebody, then no one's anybody.
After completely confusing Marco and Giuseppe with this line of reasoning, Don Alhambra announces that the Duke and Duchess of Plaza Toro have arrived in Barataria and will be here at any moment, accompanied by their beautiful daughter Casilda. Who are they, and what's that to us, say the two kings, whose wives have sneaked back in and overhear this conversation. Don Alhambra then drops this bombshell. One of the two kings is married to Casilda, and is therefore an unintentional bigamist. This brings Tessa and Janetta out of hiding. They interrupt and bombard him with uncomfortable questions. Namely, why didn't he tell them about this before they left Venice? Because if he had, reasons the quick-thinking Don Alhambra, no earthly temptation would have induced these gentlemen to leave two such extremely fascinating and utterly irresistible little ladies. Don Alhambra tells them it won't be long till they know who is king. The royal nurse is in the torture chamber, waiting for him to interview her, admonishing them in the meanwhile to conduct themselves as single young ladies. The inquisitor goes off to begin the interrogation. As the four young lovers discuss this news, the situation quickly becomes heated. They try to calm down and find a solution in a contemplative fashion.
In a contemplative fashion, and a tranquil frame of mind, free from every kind of passion, some solution let us find.
Good intentions, but in no time the singing also becomes rather heated.
You and he will have to part. If I have to do it, I'll warrant she'll rue it. I'll teach her to marry the man of my heart. If she marry Messer Marco, you're a spinster. No matter if I can get her. I doubt if her mother will know her again. If I have to do it, I'll warrant she'll teach her to marry the man of my heart.
Disentangles every knot.
Meanwhile, the Plaza Toros have arrived. They are now dressed in outlandishly opulent style. They have evidently come into some money since we last saw them. Casilda, at the prospect of meeting her husband, sighs that she will of course be a dutiful wife, but she can never love her husband. Of course she can, says the Duchess. All it takes is determination, the kind she had when she set her sights on Casilda's father, saying, "That man is a duke, and I will love him."
On the day when I was wedded to your admirable sire, I acknowledge that I dreaded an explosion of his ire. I was overcome with panic, for his temper was volcanic, and I didn't dare revolt, for I feared a thunderbolt.
Casilda's only hope is that when her husband sees what a shady family he is married into, he will repudiate the contract altogether. "Shady?" says the Duke. "Shady, when business is so good?" The Duke and Duchess let on how they now lend their name and influence to help those less fortunate, and, by the way, to pick up a little pocket money.
To help unhappy commoners and add to their enjoyment, affords a man of noble rank congenial employment. Of our attempts we offer you examples illustrative. The work is light, and I may add, it's most remunerative.
And so it goes. Endorse this product, attend that dinner party, as the scheme morphs from how to help unhappy commoners to how to lure simpletons into your clutches, all of which goes to prove their daughter's point. Shady indeed. And finally, for the first time in the opera, the two different sets of characters come together. The plebeian kings, Marco and Giuseppe, meet the aristocratic Plaza Toros. The Duke bows, but the two kings try to shake hands. The Duke refuses and bows again. They try to shake Casilda's hand, but she curtsies. More awkwardness. The Duke complains about his disrespectful reception in Barataria. No guard of honor, no royal salutes, no triumphal arches. The two kings explain that their subjects are very offhand with them, and wouldn't stand such things. "Ah, but you mustn't allow that," says the Duke. He tries to show them how to be dignified and impressive without being condescending.
Courtier grave and serious, who is about to kiss your hand, try to combine a pose imperious with a demeanor nobly bland.
Let us combine a pose imperious with a demeanor nobly bland.
Some progress is made, and the two kings even manage a bit of a gavotte. The Duke and Duchess then go off, leaving Casilda with the two kings. Another moment with awkward silence, broken only when the three blurt out that it's useless. They're already in love with somebody else. To add to the confusion, Janetta and Tessa enter, and Casilda is astounded to find that the two kings are already married. Here is a case unprecedented.
Here is a case unprecedented, here a king and queen is sought. Ever since marriage was first invented, never was known a case so hard. And it is said to be bisected by a profound catastrophe. Through a calamity unexpected, I am divisible into three.
The whole company re-enter, as Don Alhambra drags on the royal nursemaid, Inez, to announce the rightful king. "Speak, woman, speak," they all sing.
Speak, woman, speak.
We're all a attention.
The news we seek is no mention.
His foster mother, is he the king?
For this, my brother,
The royal prince was by the king entrusted to my fond care, ere I grew old and crusted.
Inez sings in a short melodramatic solo that she had fooled everybody. When Donna Alhambra had come to steal the prince, she had substituted her own small boy and kept the young prince with her, raising him as her son. The king of Barataria is Luis, and the queen is his beloved Casilda. The Gondoliers quartet are momentarily disappointed, but ultimately they celebrate their return to their former lives. Once more gondoliere, both skillful and wary, free from this quandary, contented are we. Happy endings abound as the opera comes to a joyful conclusion.
Oh,